Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama we don't need that one, Kodachi. We've got it up on the screen. Yeah, best to have it tucked in the corner there. Yeah, thank you. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna. Okay, we're back on. Yep. Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Govardhana ki Jai. Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Lord Giriraj ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaunitai ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Okay, we just had a little bit of trouble with the microphones there. Right, so welcome everyone to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. And we're reading from Canto 3, Chapter 12, entitled Creation of the Kumaras and Others. And we are up to text 4. Still a little bit, be really good if we can get a really crisp image here. Maybe we can get a cloth or something and put behind it, because the light coming in through that screen makes it a little bit less sharp. But you can all see? Yeah? Okay. So here we go. Sanakam cha sanandam cha Hare Krishna. Nishkriyan urdvareta saha Sanakam cha sanandam cha Sanatanam atatmabahu Sanat kumaram cha munim Nishkriyan urdvareta saha Sanakam cha sanandam cha Sanatanam atatmabahu Sanat kumaram cha munim Nishkriyan urdvareta saha Sanakam cha sanandam cha Sanatanam atatmabahu Sanat kumaram cha munin Nishkriyan urdvareta saha. Any of the ladies would like to try? Sanakam cha sanandam cha Sanatanam atatmabu Sanat kumaram cha munin Nishkriyan urdvareta saha. Okay, so here we go. The synonyms, you can see that there. Sanakam, Sanaka. Cha, also. Sanandam, Sananda. Cha, and. Sanatanam, Sanatana. Atta, thereafter. Atmabu, Brahma, who is self-born. Sanat Kumaram, Sanat Kumara. Cha, also. Munin, the great sages. Nishkriyan, free from all fruitive action. Urdvaretasha, those whose semen flows upwards. Translation. In the beginning, Brahma created 4 great sages named Sanaka, Sananda, Sanatana and Sanat Kumar. All of them were unwilling to adopt materialistic activities because they were highly elevated due to their semens flowing upwards. Translation, please repeat. In the beginning, Brahma created 4 great sages named Sanaka, Sananda, Sanatana and Sanat Kumar. All of them were unwilling to adopt materialistic activities because they were highly elevated due to their semens flowing upwards. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Although Brahma created the principles of nescience as a matter of necessity for those living entities who were destined to ignorance by the will of the Lord, he was not satisfied in performing such a thankless task. He therefore created 4 principles of knowledge: Sankhya, or empirical philosophy for the analytical study of material conditions; Yoga, or mysticism for liberation of the pure soul from material bondage; Vairagya, the acceptance of complete detachment from material enjoyment in life to elevate oneself to the highest spiritual understanding; and Tapas, or the various kinds of voluntary austerities performed for spiritual perfection. Brahma created the 4 great sages, Sananda, Sanatana and Sanatkumara, to entrust them with these 4 principles of spiritual advancement, and they inaugurated their own spiritual party, or sampradaya, known as the Kumara Sampradaya, or later on as the Nimbarka Sampradaya, for the advancement of bhakti. All of these great sages became great devotees, for without devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot achieve success in any activity of spiritual value. Jai. Om Maya Timirandasya Gnanana Shalakira Chakshur Unmalitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my darkened eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Jai Hare Krishna. Right, so the 4 Kumaras. Let's have a look here. What I have prepared. So at the start of this chapter, right, in verse 2, we have been hearing how Lord Brahma first created these 5 nescient engagements. Right, so what does that mean, nescient engagements? It means 5 ways in which individuals who are inclined towards materialistic life can engage with this world. Right? So here we have another very wonderful painting produced by our ISKCON devotees, and this one is actually showing Lord Brahma in his various creative capacities. And here across the top, right, you see the yellow circle? This is actually those 5 nescient engagements. Right? Self-deception, fear of death, anger after frustration, the sense of false ownership, and the illusory bodily conception. Also, I just want to mention, I'm sorry about pointing my feet at you all, but I can't actually get my legs up onto this asana. So, right, but, you know, creating them did not actually make Lord Brahma very happy. Right, so he wanted to create, for his next creative period, he wanted to create something which was not so kind of downbeat or gloomy. So, next, Lord Brahma set about creating 4 principles of knowledge, right? Something a bit more upbeat. So Prabhupada has outlined them in his purport, right? We had Sankhya. Sankhya is, you know, the ability to discriminate between spirit and matter, right? And this is actually discussed quite at length throughout our Srimad Bhagavatam. Yoga, right? The ability to control the senses so that we can link with the Supreme. This is actually discussed more in the Bhagavad Gita, in our Bhagavad Gita. We have Vairagya, right, renouncing or detaching from material enjoyment, and tapas, which is voluntary austerities for spiritual advancement. Right, so in other words, imposing, you know, this word austerity means imposing severe restrictions on oneself for the purpose of advancing spiritually, or at least this is how we discuss austerity when we are discussing it within the context of Shastra, within the context of scripture. Right, so after creating these 4 branches of knowledge, Lord Brahma wanted somebody to take charge of these, right? So he created the 4 Kumaras. Right, so here, you see the second yellow circle there? The 4 Kumaras. Now see how they're situated on his forehead? This is because the Kumaras are Manas Putra. They are mind-born sons. They were born from Lord Brahma's mind. And as we're going to be hearing, I'm not going to jump ahead too much into the next verses, but as we're going to be hearing over the next few days in the following verses, after creating these sons, Lord Brahma then asked them, yes, to take charge of these 4 branches of knowledge, but he also wanted them to produce children, to marry and have children to further the population. But they refused to do so because the 4 Kumaras are actually very elevated souls, and they just wanted to focus on spiritual life as opposed to worldly life. So does that mean, that marrying and having children is not a spiritual activity? Well, not exactly, but let's have a little bit more of a look into this, right? Worldly life. So, generally, souls who are very spiritually advanced, or even souls who desire to advance spiritually, who are very serious about taking up this process, they will restrict and limit their engagement with the world, this world, right? This is what we call the material world. We are in this material atmosphere. So they will restrict and limit their involvement with it, or they will forego it altogether. They won't have anything to do with it, more or less. So, what does actually worldly life mean? Right, worldly life means, getting a good job, perhaps developing a career so that one can make more money and even more money. It means marrying and having children, right? And from that comes, being surrounded by so many family members and relatives, and in fact, maintaining a good family and maintaining so many friends in society, then one actually needs to have, usually one needs to have a good amount of money, because not many people are attracted to associate with somebody who is destitute and poverty-stricken. Worldly life also means, involvement in politics, philanthropy, community concerns, commerce, right? The particular cultural traditions of the land into which one is born. All of these are what we can describe as worldly activities, and all of them, most of them, are sort of enmeshed together. They are all part of the same entanglement. So now all these types of activities, they distract the mind, they distract the intellect from focusing purely on spiritual matters. And this is, of course, a bit of a tragedy for the spiritual living person. Right? So, we are, our material bodies, we all know that our bodies are limited. Our material minds and our material intellect is also limited. Right? We can imagine it's a little bit like a computer. Okay, so as spiritual souls, we are living inside these material bodies made up of both gross matter and subtle matter. And we are restricted according to the limitations of what we can do with this body. Right? If we spend, let's say, 8 hours a day focusing on these worldly types of activities that I've just been describing, then we're only going to have, a small amount of time to then focus on spiritual matters. Right? Similarly, if we fill up our mind and our intellect with worldly considerations, then the capacity is going to run out. It is actually a little bit like a computer. Every computer has a gigabyte limit, right? If we fill up the gigabytes with all sorts of other things, then we are simply not going to have such a great capacity for dedicating to spiritual spiritual goals, spiritual, well, perhaps concerns about our spiritual lives, right? We simply cannot do it. Right? So the 4 Kumaras, right, who were already advanced in spiritual awareness, right, understanding this situation that, okay, you know, we have a choice as to how we spend our lives, what we dedicate ourselves to. They decided that they wanted to avoid entanglement, material entanglement altogether. Right? So, of course, you know, when the Kumaras refused the command of their father, Lord Brahma became very angry, right, because they were not following his command. And through, we know the story, right, as Lord Brahma became very angry, from between his eyebrows, you know, when somebody becomes angry, their eyebrows, they curl up like this. So between Lord Brahma's eyebrows came a child, right, and that child was, of course, Lord Shiva, right. Here we have him in the 3rd circle there. So, you know, another name for Shiva is Rudra. Rudra means anger, right? So Lord Shiva was born from Lord Brahma's anger because the 4 Kumaras were not responding to their father's instruction. Right, but let's have a look at this resolve of the Kumaras. So, okay, so in the verse today, we hear that the Kumaras were unwilling to adopt materialistic activities because they were highly elevated due to their semens flowing upwards. Right, so what does this mean, and what is the importance of this? So this is a little reading. It's coming from Srimad Bhagavatam 4th canto, Srila Prabhupada's purport. Prabhupada says like this: the system of brahmacharya, right, that's celibacy, refraining from, that means refraining from indulging in sexual activities. This practice has been current on earth since the birth of Lord Brahma himself. Right? So from the beginning, a section of the world's population, especially the men, they did not marry at all, right? Meaning that they did not engage in any sexual activities. So instead of allowing their semen to be driven downwards, as it is during sexual activity, internally, right, these celibates, they would lift or somehow direct their semen up towards the brain. This is how it's described. And such celibate men, they are called Urdhva Retasha. Urdhva Retasha. Right, men who are able to do this. So Prabhupada says semen is so important that if by this yogic process a man can lift his semen up to his brain, he can perform wonderful work. Right? Prabhupada says one's memory is enabled to act very swiftly and the duration of life is increased. Yogis who totally refrain from sexual activity can thus perform all kinds of austerity with steadiness and be elevated to the highest perfectional stage, even to the spiritual world, right? Because of refraining from this indulgence of the body. Also, in another section of the 4th canto, Srila Prabhupada says that semen is meant to be discharged only when one has a home, a wife, and with the intention of begetting children. Right? Otherwise, there is no injunction in the scriptures for a man to discharge semen. Right? Prabhupada further states in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that every man should be taught to be very careful to not discharge semen unnecessarily. This is very important for human beings. And if semen is not discharged unnecessarily, then such a man becomes extremely strong in memory, determination, activity, and the vitality of bodily energy. Right. So the 4 Kumaras, right, understanding the benefits of remaining celibates and not discharging their semen, they chose to not enter into married life. So, one question is, how did they manage to do this? How did they manage to achieve this? Because, after all, every individual really who is born into the material atmosphere is pushed, is driven towards attraction for the opposite sex, or usually it's the opposite sex. This goes on in all species of life. So how did the four Kumaras do it? Well, actually, through the power of their own mystic powers, they decided to keep themselves, or more to the point, they kept their material bodies in the form of 5-year-old boys. Right? This is why all the paintings that we see of the four Kumaras, they're always appearing as little boys, right? Which means that, you know, they are keeping their bodies at an age before they reach sexual maturity, and in this way they will not be disturbed by the hormones that start, you know, agitating the mind and the senses when a young boy starts to reach sexual maturity. And in boys, it is said that can begin as early as 9 years old. So the four Kumaras, they are renowned for this determination to avoid becoming involved in worldly, materialistic life, right, and to dedicate themselves fully to their spiritual purposes. So I thought we'd have a bit of a look at these 4 types of knowledges which the four Kumaras have been entrusted with. Right, so we remember what they are: Sankhya, Yoga, Vairagya, and Tapas. Right. So Sankhya is defined like this. There's a few definitions I've just picked out here. Right, from the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says, Sankhya means that factual knowledge by which one can get out of material entanglement. Right, in other words, how do we get out of this web of worldly activities? Another definition is, right, Sankhya means analytical description of the body and the soul. Right, for the same purpose, right, for the purpose of unentangling ourselves from material or worldly involvement. And another definition from the Caitanya Caritamrita is that Sankhya means to be able to discriminate between what is spirit and what is matter. Right? I mean, these are all very, very useful things if we can learn how to discriminate between spirit and matter and between the body and the soul. So I thought we would do a little Sankhya Yoga exercise here in the class today, right? Because we've been discussing how the Kumaras have chosen to avoid any sort of entanglement in worldly life. So I was wondering, would anyone like to give a descriptor of that which distinguishes spirit from matter, or, you know, spiritual qualities, shall we say, from material qualities? Anyone want to have a go? I've got a little list here, but okay, I'll start us off. Right, we have spiritual. Spirit means eternality, that which is eternal. Right? Material is that which is temporary. Spirit is that which is the living component. Right? The non-living is, for example, the material body. Right? On its own, it is not living. Right? The spiritual principle, right, the living entity, is conscious, whereas matter, inert matter, is not conscious. Spirit, the spiritual soul is, right, we have Satchitananda, full of knowledge. Matter is full of ignorance. Spirit, the spiritual component, is that which is indestructible. Krishna declares this in the Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter. Whereas matter is destructible. Spiritual subject matters are aimed at the true welfare of all living beings. Mundane or material subject matters and topics generally degenerate, or they are immoral type of topics that are really aimed at selfish ends. They do not really benefit the spiritual living individual. Spirit is the superior energy, whereas matter is the inferior energy. Matter cannot work or move without the touch of spirit. Right? So matter is dependent on spirit, not the other way around. Right? And of course, Krishna consciousness above all of those descriptors, we have that a life dedicated to the Supreme Lord. In other words, Krishna consciousness. This is spiritual consciousness, whereas a life dedicated to worldly activities that we've been discussing today, where this is what we describe as consciousness, which is materially orientated or materially focused. So, we can go on and give lots of descriptors like this, but we get the general gist of this. So, in studying this and in trying to understand this, we are actually partaking in some of this Sankhya knowledge, this study of Sankhya that the four Kumaras have been entrusted with. So, given this short little list here that I've been reading, I think that it is fair to say that it would be very difficult, right, according to just my own short list here, it would be very difficult to say that spiritual topics are less important or less relevant or even less interesting than mundane or worldly topics. We can understand that from this list. Now the other three types of knowledge that Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport, right, that were given to the four Kumaras, right, the other one after Sankhya was yoga, right. So yoga, yes, it is the ability to control the senses, to control the mind, to learn how to live our lives in a way that we can connect with the Supreme Lord, that we can dedicate our life to Him. And the last two, vairagya, right, detachment from material entanglement or material indulging, and tapasya, right, voluntarily imposing restrictions on our own enjoyment, shall we say, of material life. So all of these three, right, these last three types of knowledges, all of them are basically giving the same message, right? That it's actually if we really want to advance spiritually, we have to impose some sort of form of restriction on our own lifestyles while we are here in this material atmosphere. We have to do it. Civilized human life actually means to voluntarily take on some austerity, to voluntarily, pull on the reins of the horse. This is the analogy, that the horses, like the horses of the cart, are like the senses, and they are just running away with the spirit soul, who is the passenger in the cart. So, we need to pull up the reins of the horses. If we can learn to regulate our lifestyles, right, our mental activities, what we eat, right, our daily activities, right, all of these things should be done in moderation. They should be done for the purpose of giving us a moderate lifestyle that will, for one, create good health and create a good, peaceful inner environment for ourselves, so that we can then focus more explicitly on the ultimate goal, the supreme goal of our spiritual lives, and that is our relationship with the Supreme Lord, right? This is the topmost goal of spiritualists who are very, very serious about their future spiritual lives, right? So I just wanted to go back here, though. Now, this depiction here, so, obviously the image to the left represents devotional life, the image to the right is representing material life, and the image in the middle is the spiritual person, right? So, whether a person chooses to engage in spiritual devotional activities, or if they choose to involve themselves in material activities, the spiritual soul, right, the image in the middle, is still there as much in either case, right? The spiritual soul, again, the soul itself, or the soul himself, can never be destroyed or vanquished by anything or anyone. But the difference is that involvement in devotional life means that the individual is not so much covered up by this heavy, dark material energy as the individual who is involved in material life, right? So there's another thing that goes on, right, within this phenomenon, right? The individual who is involved in, who chooses worldly life or worldly entanglement or worldly activities, right? They are actually struggling with what may be described as duplicity, right? Because what's going on in their situation is this: the spiritual soul is always yearning for spiritual engagement, right? This is what the soul, these are the desires of the soul, is to engage in the loving service of the Supreme Lord, right, to advance spiritually. But when the individual, right, due to their consciousness becoming polluted by the material energy, excuse me, when the individual, is being pulled towards worldly life, what's going on then within that individual? It is a discordant situation, right? On the one hand, you have the spiritual soul desiring spiritual and devotional engagement, and on the other hand, you have the materially contaminated consciousness pulling the soul in another direction. And resulting from that is a kind of a what is the word? Like a unharmonious, is that a word? Unharmonious, like a conflicting situation within that individual, right? Whereas the devotee, who is actually practicing on a conscious level, they are practicing bhakti yoga, right? They are dedicating their life to the Supreme. They are in sync with the desires of the soul, right? They are more streamlined, so you're not going to get that friction and that kind of unharmonious, right, conflicting situation within themselves, right? So, this duplicitous and disturbing situation within the materialist, this is why, right, we have, right, especially in Kali Yuga, we have so many people with mental health problems. We see it everywhere today. So many people with emotional problems, right? We know more and more mental health clinics are opening up all over the world. Excuse me. Excuse me one second. Yeah, sorry about that. I have a little thing with my throat. Yeah, because people are, they are at a lot, they are, it's almost like a split personality, right? The psychologists have identified this phenomenon when they say, oh, that person is suffering from a split personality, where there is discord or disharmony or a difference in direction within the one individual. So this situation is going to keep increasing as Kali Yuga advances. Right? We're going to see more and more people being at odds with themselves and not understanding why. So this is actually the root cause of why this is, because in Kali Yuga, many people are ignoring their spiritual needs. They are ignoring the needs of the soul, and they are simply thinking that they can find peace and happiness by pursuing worldly life. So, this is very, very, very sad, and as I was saying, but for the transcendentalist, for the spiritualist, this kind of discord or duplicity doesn't exist. So we can think about this, because this is a very prevalent problem within our current societies, and it is going to get worse. So, let's have a look here. So, yes, these, when we take the lessons of the Shastras seriously, when we really start to study the knowledge that has been given to us by Srila Prabhupada, by our previous acharyas, that means to create a lifestyle for ourselves, right, in which we are not indulging in this material world, in this material atmosphere. We will be in a much better situation to find, for example, inner peace, inner stability, sanity, rationality, happiness, and of course a good mental focus, right, all over. So this is, kind of like the lesson, one of the lessons that is coming from the four Kumaras, right? They, from right from the outset, they said, no, we are not going to become entangled in worldly life. We know what worldly life leads to. And in their particular case, they just said no involvement at all. Right? Not only did they limit their involvement, they said no involvement at all. And instead, the four Kumaras are simply traveling around and preaching, teaching the principles of Bhakti Yoga and what we've been discussing today. So, just going to move that to our last picture here. Yeah. So, this was actually all I had prepared for today. We're a little early. I thought I was going to actually run late. So, I chopped some of the class out because last time I was running late. So now I'm a little bit early. It's 8:15. Would anyone like to add anything to what we've been discussing today, or if anyone has a question? It can be a question about the class, or it can be a question about anything else. Yes, Pastor Shrestha Prabhu.
Thank you very much for the class, Padma. It was really good.
Thank you, Prabhu.
I was just always wondering about the four Kumaras, whether they've come from they're Nitya Siddhas, they come from the spiritual world, or they're actually, conditioned souls that did come from the last creation. Because we know that Narad Muni, he was born from Lord Brahma, but he was eternally liberated. So I was just always thinking that. I don't know if it's actually written anywhere. If it is, maybe you have some idea on that?
Thank you for that question. Yeah. So Prabhu is asking, if we know the history of the four Kumaras before they appeared as the sons of Lord Brahma. I have not come across any knowledge. I'm sorry, I can't answer your question. But it is very interesting to be able to trace the history of great souls like the four Kumaras and like Narada Muni. In this particular case, I've come up empty-handed. I'm so sorry. Does anyone else have any information about the origin of the four Kumaras, right there, those four personalities before they were born as the Manasaputras? No. Okay. All right. Anyone else have any question? Yes, Prabhu. Yeah. Here, take this one. Ah, there we go.
Hello.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the lecture.
Thank you,
really
Ananda.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you have any sort of like recommendations, like towards like perhaps performing like austerities. For example, about food. I have a problem with food. It's probably one of the most challenging for me. Like, is there anything that you could recommend on that?
Okay, so food, you said, yeah. So food is actually, it's a good question that you've placed. Thank you very much, because, as soon as a baby is born, the first thing, his engagement is he's given the breast of the mother. So, that connection is there with food. Food can be very difficult to control. I have witnessed in certain individuals that according to how they were exposed to having perhaps not enough food when they were infants, and that has carried over into later in their lives. So yeah, this thing of food is actually very, very central to the body's reaction, or shall we say, how the body deals with being in their particular life. So one thing though that I have witnessed myself also within my own attempts to regulate my diet, is that the mind, you can actually impose restrictions on diet by using the mind. There is a pretty common saying in English, mind over matter. That means that the mind is actually stronger than the body, which it is. And but in saying that, I think what is necessary is that we need to, in terms of regulating diet, we need to understand the particular subject matter more deeply according to Shastra. Right? For example, today we've been studying, how restricting the senses, right? The tongue is said to be the most difficult sense to control. But by understanding, this is actually a little bit of Sankhya, by philosophical examination, by understanding what is the purpose of food, right, for a start, is the purpose of food to enjoy? I mean, it's like, for materialists, they consider just about everything in this world to be there for their enjoyment. That's what they are thinking. Oh, we are simply here to enjoy whatever it is, it's there for our enjoyment. Right? So, but as devotees, we understand that the food that is available to us, it has been given to us to nourish these bodies so that our spiritual soul can become peaceful, so that we can keep going, that we can endure our life force, and that is for the purpose of developing and trying to perfect our spiritual activities. So by constant meditation on this, and by actually reading about these sorts of subject matters, we do actually have within our ability to change our mentality and our understanding about food. Like, a lot of us devotees here, at least I can just speak for myself. Yeah, we were brought up, as children. I know for myself, my family, when I was young, we would just eat whatever, and some of those things were really unmentionable. And, children are given so many sweets and so many indulgences. So our understanding of the whole meaning of food needs to change. And yes, we can change it over time. It may take some time to really get a good grasp of it. But I would say that this is the best means to control diet and what we eat. It's to gain a deeper understanding and a deeper appreciation also. Like take, for example, dairy products, which everyone loves. I don't know anyone who doesn't love dairy products. But I also have many vegan friends who abstain from dairy products because they feel sorry for the cows. But if we gain this deeper understanding of mother cow and dairy and milk products, we will be able to see that actually, to accept milk from Gomata, from mother cow, this is a privilege. it's a privilege, you know. Milk, milk is such a highly valuable food product. We could say that it is or should be a luxury item, except we don't really describe it in that way. But, you know, our appreciation of dairy has, in the world today, has deteriorated to the point where people don't even think twice about it. Yeah, oh yeah, let's go to the supermarket. Yeah, we'll get lots of ice cream and you know, and cheese and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, and then they eat half of it and they throw half of it away. This is a total lack of respect and appreciation of Gaumata. It's a total lack and appreciation of the milk that she gives. So, you know, our understanding, you know, also, but even just with the plant foods that we eat, you know, we're just thinking, oh yeah, you know, the earth is just going to keep producing all these vegetables and fruits. Yeah, you know, I'll just go and buy some, and then, you know, by the time I get home, yeah, you know, I might like them or I may not. Oh yeah, I don't want them. I'll give them to someone else or throw them in the bin. You know, and again, this is a kind of lack of proper consciousness about food itself, you know, and about how Krishna is providing us with what we need to keep these bodies going. So yeah, this is my recommendation, is to meditate on these topics more deeply and to increase our understanding about the value of food, and you know, to not take more than what we need. You know, this lesson is taught in the Mahabharata by Yudhisthira Maharaj, that one should not take from the earth more than what one actually needs. You know, we should take just enough. Would anyone like to add anything to that, or yes, Prabhu? Yeah. Oh, well, I'll just give you a microphone. Yeah.
Eat only prasad at regulated times.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, at regulated times. Yes, yeah. So he's just said it in 5 words. You see, I'm very long-winded. And of course, what Prabhu is saying is actually the most important principle, that we should not eat food that is not offered to Krishna first. I think in where it's that Krishna says that, you know, eating food that is not offered, it's actually a sin. It's a sin to eat food that is not offered first to him. I can't remember where it's.
Well, it's in Bhagavad Gita.
It's in Bhagavad Gita, yeah. So
that prasad prayer that we chant, it's only to control the ferocious tongue.
Yes.
Just eat Krishna prasad and chant Gauni Tai.
Yeah.
So that's the simple process.
Yeah, it is, and it is the most direct process of controlling the senses. It's to engage them in serving Krishna, and, you know, actually eating Krishna prasad and honoring Krishna prasad. That is also service to the Supreme Lord, and that is the best way to control the tongue. But yeah, I mean, it may take some time. I mean, I still remember joining the movement and, you know, so much enjoying all the curd sabjis that I was thinking I'm never going to be able to give this up, you know. Honoring Krishna prasad is actually, it's the proper way to use the tongue, to engage the tongue, just like speaking Krishna Katha is also the proper way to engage the tongue. Yeah. Prabhu, did you want to make any comment?
One who eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much, or doesn't sleep enough, cannot be successful in the practice of yoga. So
thank you. Yeah,
we have to moderate it. We have to moderate it, keeping that in mind.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for one man, you know, his diet might require a lot. He has a big body, and he has a big fire of digestion. He needs to fuel, to give fuel to that fire. With someone else, he can live on a breadcrumb.
This is a very good point. Thank you so much. Yes, and that is a very good, you know, and that's actually what we've been discussing today, to moderate all of our activities, the sleeping and the eating and the working. And as Prabhu has just pointed out, you know, we need to respond to our bodily needs according to our particular body. Like in the, isn't it in the Mahabharata, like Bhima, out of the 5 Pandavas, right, Bhima, the second born, had a huge body, right, and he was very, very physically strong, and it said that he was always given twice the amount of food as, you know, the other Pandava boys when they sat down to eat, because Bhima's body was so big and huge, so he needed more. Excuse me. Okay, well, on that note, we are leading up to breakfast prasad. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Please keep coming. Tomorrow we have His Holiness Devamrita Swami is going to be giving the morning class at 7:30. So encouraging you all to please come and listen to him. Jai. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitya Gaura Prema.